Welcome to the Strategic Project Leader, where we help you leverage strategic project management so you can achieve your goals. Now, here's your host, Fola Alabi.
Good morning and welcome to another episode of the Strategic Project Leader. That's right, where we help you as project managers, business leaders, and entrepreneurs paint that picture like the Picasso, right? You turn ideas into realities. That's right. I'm your host, Fola Alabi. Oh my goodness, it's always a pleasure to be here. I'm a keynote speaker, consultant, and an educator, your transformational leadership coach. I'm all about leveraging strategic project management. I call that my superpowers to help you go further, faster in business and beyond. That's right. Deliver projects the right way and get the strategic advantage that you've always wanted in your organization and in your personal life as well. I am coming at you live from the Strategic Project Leader Studio in Calgary, Alberta. And what makes it even special is I've got a wonderful guest, an awesome guest who also lives in my city. Yes, you don't want to know. It's like we have so much stuff to unpack this morning. So let me know where you're actually joining us from. If you're connecting from YouTube, from LinkedIn or Facebook, let me know in the comments where you're joining us from, because we know we've had so many people all from all over the world. Today, we're going to be talking about something interesting. However, before I let you know what we're going to be talking about, I want to talk about my guest. I have a guest who has worked across different industries. He's actually like an engineer though. So he's got like an analytical side, but he's also a project leader. He's one who's got a heart to empower other project managers. He helps turn ideas, business strategies into tangible results. Yeah, he's also on the board of my chapter. I'm actually excited about that. And he's all about helping organizations and you go further, faster as well. Join me as I bring on stage the one and only Ben Chon. How are you doing, Ben, this morning?
Good. Great to be on this show. Thank you so much for inviting me here.
Definitely great to have you here this morning. What is it like just being in the same city? What's it like, living in Canada and living in Calgary? Just a quick segue.
Well, for me, I've actually lived here my entire life, and it's just been amazing seeing the city grow. I mean, I remember growing up and I used to be at the outskirts, and now it almost seems like that's inner city. But even in the recent past here, we're seeing this city grow in amazing directions, right? It used to be focused on energy, oil and gas, but we're seeing more things around film industry, the digital area of software, as well as all these other startups that Calgary is really starting to go and help grow. And so it's so awesome to see the city grow economically and diversify the industry.
That's right. When we talk about growth, that's what we're going to be focusing on today, because we want to help you as a project manager improve output. At the end of the day, you as a project manager or business leader, you have been tasked with what? To help your organization either improve the return on investments, improve customer service. There's definitely something that has to be better. So how can we ensure that we are doing the right things so we can maximize that? So when we talk about efficiencies, my goodness, Ben is the guy. He's like an engineer. He's a project manager. He fixes things. We're just going to be like throwing it all out. Like you don't even want to just strap up, get your pen and paper as we actually dive in. He's already smiling here. So let's kind of dive into it. Really, Ben, like when we think about projects, we know that we have to come in, get an idea, pull a team together, and make things happen. However, planning is like the stage where a lot of people kind of just glaze over and we just feel that, yes, I think I just got my team, let me just start to get to work. But what would you say are the key strategies that you need to think about before you even start?
Well, it's very interesting, right? Because planning can be seen as a very technical task, right? All right, let's go and do the work breakdown structure, or let's go through our epics features, and you just start plotting things out and linking them together. But I think even before that is actually looking at the culture that you're going to be cultivating to be able to create an environment where you can actually get the team together to plan. So rather than jumping straight into the planning, is taking a look at your team and say, do I have the right people? And also, do I have the right culture to be able to go and have those workshops or planning meetings be very productive? Because as you said, people are so, I'll say, they're just itching to be able to go and jump right into action. And planning can sometimes be seen as a very tedious task. But the way that I view it is that planning is actually an opportunity for you to be able to exercise your creativity. And what do I mean by that? Well, there's a lot of, if the people are coming in and they're just kind of not really focused on what they need to go and do, or waiting to be dictated as to these are all the items you have to do. And how many projects, let's say from the audience here, have been told that, here are the deadlines, here are the tasks, here's when you need to get it done. And that's the end of the conversation, right? So instead, make sure that there's that openness and creativity ability. And even though you know your boundaries, right, you have all the pieces around time, around scope, around cost, is being able to flex on those items a little bit and understand where can you push, or where are the constraints around it. And so I would say, one of the key principles is this is your chance to exercise creativity and be innovative on how you do things, and not necessarily work as dictating it to the rest of the group. And for some people I know that are subject matter experts, and we'll say accidental project managers, right? They've been very good technically at what they've been doing, and now they've been assigned by the organization to go and run a project, right? It's very easy to fall into the trap of solutioning it for everyone else. And then you're in fact dictating exactly what it is they're going to be doing, instead of letting the team be able to go and have the conversation to exercise that creativity of how could we get things done, right? What are the possibilities to be able to go and optimize and shift different perspectives as you go through the planning operation? And so along with the technical pieces, key principles wise is be creative, but then the other one is also ensuring that you're focused on the goal. So sometimes you get a little bit lost in that creativity, right? And you go down the rabbit holes and you start going, well, what about this? What about that? What could happen? And instead you're doing risk and issue management on the fly, and suddenly you lose track of the goal. So ensure that you're also having that strategic objective top of mind, and asking the question of what is this in service for?
I love that. When we think about planning, a lot of the times it's a case of we have to get in there, get all the details in, and it has to be as detailed as possible to get things done. But I also want to dive deep into this. In creating a project plan, as we know, the project plan actually outlines the scope, the deliverables, and the objectives and the timeline of a project. So think about that. When you're creating a project plan, you need to think about what exactly is in scope. What are we looking to get done? Because you may just go down the rabbit hole of trying to design this whole magnificent piece where the customer or the client just actually wanted this. Being clear about what's the scope of the project is the first stage to ensuring that you are on your way to success. And when I say the scope is, what exactly are you really looking to achieve? What are you trying to accomplish? What are you trying to actually deliver? And taking it a little bit further is, to do that, you definitely need some key people. I call them the superheroes. They are the stakeholders. They are anyone at all who can actually impact your project or will actually benefit from the outcome of your project in any shape or form. So any stakeholder that you actually need on your project has to be identified. And then you need to bring them together with your project team and then refine what the scope is. Part of the stakeholder is your actual project sponsor, who's actually going to be leading this. So it's absolutely critical to define the scope and identify stakeholders. Because if things are going to go wrong, it actually goes wrong really fast. How can we ensure that we get the stakeholders on the same page at the start then?
Well, this is where I think exercising that superpower of, let's say, communication and engagement is really important, right? And ensuring that yourself and everyone else on the team and the stakeholders are all on the same page of how it's going to be executed. so many times as well, within organizations, there's a lot of different agendas at play, right? And it's not good or bad. It's just how business operates. Different business units want to be able to go and do different things. And you also have your agenda of being able to go and move forward with your project. And so getting agreement on the things that you can agree on and also understanding where the potential conflicts is going to be really key, even from all of these planning pieces, before you even start putting together your Gantt chart or your Kanban board or all of those really great tools that help you through the planning process. But that engagement piece of making sure that there's good rapport and understanding of what people are trying to go and do is really going to help drive your results further, because they will be more inclined to go and help you, knowing that you're not trying to override them or step on them or anything like that, but you're all working towards that common goal, right? That common deliverable or outputs that you want to be able to continue moving forward.
We've got a quick one. Alex has just said something pretty great. Alex is like, I think the major challenge is that the average stakeholder has probably like very little project management knowledge. So, going through that educating stage at the beginning is actually key. And that's a good point. We need to ensure that we get the non-project managers into this space of understanding what project management is really all about, almost like the foundational piece, project management 101, because we kind of feel that just get things done and then you get a team together and then you wonder how come things are just, not really going the way you've actually planned. So that education space where we kind of get them to understand that now is a project, what exactly does that mean? What are we going to be doing? Having like RACI charts where we know this person actually responsible for this task. That person needs to like create this and this is when. How have you been able to help get your project team like to understand? Because I know you're a coach, right? So it comes natural for you. How do you get them to understand that project management is actually like transforming things, but we actually superheroes as well? So how did you get that done?
Well, I think really it's starting from where they are, right? So many times the question comes out of, so what do you do as a project manager, right? And sometimes it's very hard, right? I go back to that old movie of Office Space of like, I'm the people that helps people get things done, right? And it really just doesn't really sound like a whole lot, right? I know I'm paraphrasing that a little bit, but it's not necessarily an easy task. And so sometimes it's taking a step back and actually starting from where they are and say, hey, how much do you understand about what we're trying to go and do and my role into it, so that you're ground setting it rather than dictating it to them, right? And that way it's not necessarily feeling like you're being talked at, but being engaged with, to be able to then elevate and say, well, here's how I want to go and help you, right? And talking about how are the benefits of my role and of the project manager, and how the team and the processes they're going to put in place are going to help them get them where they want to go, right? And where, it's hard sometimes when you have the project manager mindset of things. It's a lot of it is like, how do I get things done fast and quick? And sometimes you do need to be able to slow down to have these conversations and really engage and understand where people are at so that they can go and move forward.
You got that right. I love this. I remember picking up the book by Lee Lambat. He's actually on air with me today. So great to have you, Lee. This was about at least 15 years ago. It's like the common sense approach to project management. A lot of the times, project managers actually fail to realize that you need to simplify the whole process of explaining what we're trying to do. Getting a team together to say the ABC of project management is about taking this idea that the customer really wants and helping them create the outcome that they want. And at the beginning of it all, it may not be clear as to what that end goal is actually going to be. And we're going to help them through that journey. What does that mean? It means a lot of communication. It means that we're going to sit at a table even when things seem to be going off the rail and help people come back on track. We're going to gather requirements, right? We're going to do a lot of communication plans. We're going to go back to the clients. We're going to go back and revisit the plans over and over again, because having that iterative process of creating things makes things even better. So just understand and communicating. I say you can never really over communicate as well. That way, people kind of know, okay, this is kind of where we're at. That's the future state of what we're trying to create. And the bridge in between is what we're here to help them get through even before we get there. Because think about it, like the Picasso, as I said before, it's a blank canvas at the start of a project right then. You then come in, you take that idea and gradually start painting that picture for them. Even for people who are just technical, who haven't even got project management experience at all, they end up saying that, oh my goodness, all right, this is kind of what I kind of thought we were going to do. I never knew it was going to be this. It's always a ha moment that comes through the process. And that's really good. So let's kind of dive in a little bit deeper. So when we get our stakeholders on board and they kind of know that we've identified them and they're going to come on board, they're going to help in what capacity they're going to help. A key piece is breaking down those ideas. So Ben, work breakdown structures. Before I get into the question, I know that for people who are obviously new in this space, a work breakdown structure is all about breaking down project ideas and tasks into smaller pieces. So if you've got a task, for instance, to deploy an IT system, you want to know what are the different areas do I need to break this piece of work down to the littlest of tasks, probably the one that can take you maybe about 8 hours. So how have you been able to help your clients break down your ideas during the planning phase into great work breakdown structures?
Well, I think people get overwhelmed sometimes with all of the different complexity with looking at the end state, right? And so some of the thought goes into when we talk about breaking it down. I love making the food analogies because it's something I think everyone enjoys. Everyone has to go and eat, and is also very understandable, right? And even if we're saying, hey, how do I make a burger, right? What tasks are involved with it? And you can break it down into things like, hey, here are the buns. What do we need to do with the buns? Here's the meat, here's the vegetables and all these things. What do you need to go and do? Well, we need to make sure that we procure it. We need to make sure that we wash it. We need to make sure that it goes things. And then you kind of think, okay, well, at what time do all of these things come together to be able to make that burger at the end, right? And so sometimes simplifying a little bit of that understanding then helps them understand all the little components or deliverables that help make up that work breakdown structure. And that's where, you don't want to get too caught in the complex, well, I don't know how to do that, or it's like, put that aside. Let's think about all the different components first and just start being really creative around how far can we go and break it down, and asking the question of, well, what else? What else could it be? What else could we break it down to? And what other possibilities might there be? Because some of the components you may say, well, you could have a beef patty, a pork patty, or maybe it's the Impossible Burger patty. And all three of those things could substitute to be able to make that wonderful burger that you're going to enjoy at the end, right? So being able to then see how those things can be created and how there might be different creativity involved inside of this, this is where everyone can then see a larger picture of how all of these components come together. I've been in so many different projects where sometimes the stakeholders at the end of the exercise will go, I had no idea that other group needed to go and do these things, or I had no idea I had to interact and how my pieces related to anyone else's inside of that work breakdown structure. And so giving that full visibility, and again, it's that communication engagement piece, really helps bring and solidify that team, even from a cultural perspective.
That's right. I haven't managed multiple projects and managed a PMO as well, where I've had different project managers doing different things. I have had to train and get people understanding what work breakdown structure processes should actually look like, and which is great, Ben. One key food for thought you have to think about is that when you're breaking down a task, if there is any activity that will take beyond a day to really complete, I think you need to break it down even further. So think about that when you have an actual activity, especially on projects, right? And you know that it's going to take you probably need even more resources to do that, then go back and rethink it and think about what exactly how can I break this down a little bit further? And it gives you a clearer picture and a better picture of what needs to be done. And then you can then decide to say, okay, who exactly do I need to make this happen? That's right, Ben. So now we've broken things down a little bit. We don't want to know the resources, right? Who exactly will be involved on this particular project. Now we've got an idea of what the task will actually be. How have you been able to like easily identify resources, or have you got some like tricks and tips off your sleeves that you can actually share?
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all is looking at it from a skill set perspective of what you would
Okay.
need to go and have with it. But I think some of the pieces that sometimes are forgotten is also the cultural perspective of what you need inside of the team to be able to move further. I remember watching one of Simon Sinek's videos talking about, would you rather have someone that is a better team player, or would you want someone that's really high on that scale of let's say competency, right? Really smart, really bright, but doesn't work with the team very well. What do you want to be able to have with it? And so being able to understand that cultural piece of what are you looking for inside of the team is also going to be very important, right? But when you marry those two together, then you can really start to go and look at how all of these pieces come together, right? And identifying the type of resources sometimes isn't easy, right? Sometimes you have a very limited pool and it says, hey, it has to come from someone from this business unit or this area of the organization. And sometimes you can go out to the market and maybe it's a contractor with specialized knowledge to be able to go and do that. And so understanding where is, this is where it ties into things like budget and what some of the, we'll say larger management organizational mandates might be of, like, maybe you can only choose from your organization. And so I'm not sure there's necessarily a magic or silver bullet to be able to go and do that, but you at least at a minimum need to understand what it is that you're looking for.
That's right. And I really want to raise this point. You hit something really hard. Gerard mentioned something about the chain is really only as strong as its weakest link. And he has also found from his experience that projects fail from the top, where we have a team, the project manager is actually doing things right. However, back to the point we mentioned at the first space, where getting people to really understand what project managers are actually really doing. So you may have a schedule and stuff. How can we really address this? I know from the last episode, we talk about project managers kind of having that shift to become strategic project leaders, where it goes beyond just delivering on a project, but also managing people, the stakeholder management. How have you been able to tie this with all the cultural pieces that comes to play, the politics as well, and everything in between, to get leadership to line up with the idea of the project? Any tips over there?
Well, politics is always a fun thing everyone loves dealing with, right?
I know,
But
I know.
and I think if the project has, we'll say, has already been approved, we have to assume for a moment that there is some minimal amount of support to move that project forward, right? But when you look at your project sponsor, is then really, when you're engaging with them, is understanding how strong is that support, right? It's not necessarily a black and white answer of yes or no, but what is the extent that they're paying attention to it? How much is involved with it? And building up more of that rapport, right? And even outside of the projects, how many times have you been able to go and hear that, if this project doesn't go through, that person's job is on the line, right? As much as we as project managers are focused on the delivery, there are other political impacts that, maybe it's kind of like Game of Thrones, where there are larger implications that are not necessarily stated inside of the normal scope and deliverables that are still tied to that project. And so building that greater understanding of how things are tied to their larger strategic plan, how does that contribute to the larger organization and also their department, and seeing how that also impacts other departments that, that stakeholders are involved as well. Being able to go and present those things properly, but also understanding where whether other areas of the organization, how they're impacted, is going to be very important as well, because that sometimes isn't super clear from the original scope that's provided. And some of them, I've even seen in past projects, may conflict with other strategic priorities directly. So sometimes then it forces you to go and have that conversation with both the leaders and the sponsors to go and say, I'm noticing this conflict. What is it that we need to go and do so that we can continue moving forward? Is it a change in scope? Is it a change in the direction? Maybe it's just a timing issue. I'm not sure, but that's where I think as project leaders, we have to have the ability to be able to ask the right questions, to tease out the answers so that you can have those conversations. Because I think by asking questions rather than dictating, you're able to go and have a lot more buy-in and engagement from stakeholders all around, whether they be from an executive position or from a lower positions.
I want to dive a little bit deeper as well. This is just a little formula that I have seen to have worked, and I've actually, done magic. There's a piece of concept we call what is the need for me? What is the need for you? And what is the need for the whole organization? We need to be crystal clear as to what this looks like, because everyone has got different agendas, believe it or not. You may be brought in as a project. I may be a project sponsor on that actual project. And then there is the operations team, and there's all the different elements and the different moving parts. As a strategic project leader, you'll be able to clearly articulate what exactly the business benefits are on this actual project. What exactly will the benefits be for probably you as a finance director, or even, as the CFO, whatever that looks, depending on what product actually is. But being able to clearly articulate what exactly is in it for all of us makes it easier to get the buy-in, because there are always going to be multiple projects and multiple priorities across the organization. In order to get the right people listening and being change agents and advocates for your projects, you need to ensure that it's clear as to what is the win for them. And a lot of the time, it's just, at times, project managers are just so tactical and just in the weeds and focusing right down there on that actual project and forgetting about the fact that there's so many factors and so many things, all around. So especially that's a challenge for people who've been listening to me today is go off and ensure that, within, if it's in your project chatter, in the business case, go back and pull that, go and do some research so you can clearly have that actual plan. It could even be a poster where people know, yes, this project is going to make maybe your reporting more efficient, or it is actually going to mean that for the finance department, when we implement this SAP new system, for instance, it's going to mean that you're going to have more accurate data you can actually report on. It means that, the organization can better have a clearer perspective as to how we're doing and how it impacts our bottom line. Or it could actually mean that it could affect our social license to operate. Whatever that means, being able to clearly articulate what is the need for me, what is the need for you, and what is the need for us helps get buy-in. And that's one piece I actually want to share. And I hope someone actually gets that piece. Another thing that I think that also will help is getting people to become change agents for you. And what do I mean? Imagine you have you're doing a project kickoff meeting. And at that meeting, you have the project sponsor there. You have maybe the executive director of finance, key people in the organization who have already bought into this idea of what you're trying to do. People are going to sit up and want to listen. They want to know, okay, what exactly is this product about? We've got the big guns supporting us and driving this. So ensuring that you build relationships as well with the people that can actually move the needle in the organization is also critical. That brings me to my next question. Ben, how have you been able to build relationships seamlessly across the organization?
Well, that's interesting because I'd say you have to be authentic to who you are. A lot of the clients that I've engaged with and whatnot, I tell them straight up, I am not super formal on things. I don't do a lot of, we'll say, the C speak when we're talking. I like to go and talk casually, still professionally, but still more on a casual basis with people so that I can go and build those relationships and coming as who you are, right? And this is sometimes not necessarily easy for everyone because maybe you're more of an introvert, or maybe you have other, we'll say personality pieces that come into play that you're afraid of being judged on. And so how do you be able to go and show that so that people don't think that you have some sort of agenda behind it or whatnot, right? And if you can't build that trust, then that's a problem. And so there's a few things. One is make sure you exercise integrity, right? Do what you say you're going to go and do. The more that you miss deadlines or you under deliver on multiple pieces, right? That trust continues to erode, and people will not want to go and talk to you anymore because they're not sure if they can trust what you're putting out there. So being able to go and do what you want to do, what you're going to say you're going to do, is very important. And for me specifically, right? And I think this is where authenticity is sometimes a little bit hard, is that I like to go and throw humor into a lot of different things, right? But you have to have very good judgment as to when to use it and when you don't. The same thing with other people and their ability to go and talk to each other, right? How do you use your judgment and we'll say the emotional intelligence, and I know for you is also the project intelligence of how to be able to go and talk to people and be confident around it, right? If you exercise and have some of that hesitation when you're talking to people or you're unsure, people will be able to go and read that, whether it's online or in person. In person, you'll probably be able to get more body cues and things like that. But being secure in who you are and what you're putting forward is something really key that I've found in talking with stakeholders, whether they be, part of your project team or ancillary stakeholders or with executives and sponsors.
That's right. And for me on this actual show, my goal is to, really help people execute and go further faster. We want to break down the realities of what's going out there in the real world, not just what we see in textbooks. And indeed, just as Lee has said in his comments, is that the reality is that when we execute on projects, a lot of the pieces that will be beneficial, senior leadership may actually see it as a waste of time. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, why should we spend more time like training people, or why should, how do you convert that into costs that is like tangible? It just seems like it's sunk cost right now. However, the benefits of getting a team, whipped up to understand what should be done at the right time. But how exactly can we really work on managing up? That's what I call it.
Right.
Where senior leadership get fully on board to a space where, yes, I get it. When we get a project together, we need to spend even a bit more time in the planning phase. We need to spend more time, bringing teams together to understand how we're going to be doing things. This is why we're going to, have an iterative approach in this particular area, not everywhere else. So when it comes to maybe procurement, we may have to get something first or do something differently, without a doubt. But how really can we start managing up? Because managing up is a skill set that I believe every project professional needs to actually have. How have you been able to do that?
Yeah, and I think part of that is when you're engaging with the higher up executive stakeholders, understanding what is it that they care about, right? Some of them will care about more about the outcomes and impacts. Some of them are only caring about the cost a lot more, right? What is it that they're focused on? And when you're engaging in conversation with them, this is what I like to go and call, I'll say, the spoiler report, right? Is executives are always busy. They're always busy on time, and booking time inside of the calendar, it's like, okay, I can find maybe that 15 minutes to have that conversation. And as sometimes project managers or more technical folk, is that you like to kind of go through the whole story of things. But instead, what I challenge people to try and do is instead give the spoiler report, right? How many times have you watched TV episode series and things like that, and people would say, spoiler warning, don't tell me what's going to happen. I want to go and discover it for myself. Executives, on the other hand, are completely the opposite. They want to know the outcome of what happens, and everything else, if they want to go and know the story, then they'll go and ask a little bit more about it, but give that spoiler report based off of what they're looking for, right? And so being focused on what their key messages are and what it is they're looking for, and impacts, risks, issues, or whatever that you need to go and have that key conversation on, is then bringing that up earlier inside of the conversation as kind of the headline, and then going down into the meat of it as needed to be able to support or inform what that spoiler was.
You're right. A lot of these pieces ties back to communication and communicating clearly and regularly. That's another piece because at times we feel that there's an issue actually coming up, or you feel that you already have a solution. You're going to say, how can I really just fix it so that I don't need to actually talk about that now? However, I say there should be no surprises. Project management is a space where, unlike, I love surprises at home and gifts and stuff, right? But on projects, your stakeholders shouldn't actually get those kind of surprises, especially the negative ones. You want to communicate clearly and make sure that you do that so people can actually build trust. They understand that indeed, no matter where you're at in your project, Fola is going to come up and tell me exactly where things are at. You can really build those relationships because they know that things are almost like an open book. This is where you have to be like crystal clear as to, risk, issues, challenges, roadblocks, and we have to fix it now. And so those progress reports has to be really, really transparent because that has helped me over my career and being proactive as well. Because even there are times where things are on the risk log, they're not even issues yet, right? You need to assign these pieces to certain people who can really like work on them before they become issues. Because at times you're like, oh no, it's just a risk. We've done the assessment, things are gonna be fine. And then the next thing, a contract doesn't actually show up with like a major consignment or something happens. Like, how come you never knew when in the news they already told us that there's gonna be like a flood or something's obviously coming? So project leaders are the ones who are more strategic. They actually more proactive as well. So they can actually even forecast and say, based on what's happening around the business, I know this may actually affect my project. Another piece that I have found is communicating with other parts of the business, because you may be in a silo within your project, but there are other projects that could actually be dependent on the outcome and the outputs of your project. So improving throughput doesn't just affect you, it affects other projects, especially even if you're within a program where it may be like a start to finish or finish to start relationship. So the outcome of your project may fit into another project or another program. But communicating with other people in the business, building those relationships will help you understand the why behind the project, will make you and help you understand how you can even affect other projects as well and other leaders, because it takes a village. I say that. When there's an issue, you can help other people, like quench their fires, but communicating, building those relationships actually helps. Overall, when it comes to efficiencies, what have you seen that has actually helped you as well? I know we kind of dived into the planning piece, the stakeholder
Yeah.
management, and all those pieces, right? Because efficiency, improving and getting things done is the order of the day. We have to deliver value. We have to be team players. We have to show up and do this consistently. How can
Mhm.
we, improve throughput and be more efficient? What have you found that has actually helped? Because I want to give these tips.
Yeah, I think at a detailed level, like let's say on a day-to-day basis, and this is what I like about Scrum and the stand-ups, right? One of the questions is, what are the barriers? What do you need to be successful in the task that's at hand that you're dealing with right now? And that again, that seems to be the theme, is communication and engagement with your team, understanding what is it that they need to be supported so that they can continue where they're moving forward, right? And a lot of it as well is knowing that your plan can be flexible and building that expectation on things. As a project manager, you shouldn't be looking at the now. You should be looking at the future, right? And how things can be optimized, how things can be more efficient. And sometimes things need to go and shift around in terms of tasks. So maybe sometimes some things will go in parallel to gain more efficiency. And being able to ask the questions and not saying, hey, this schedule we've put together is completely static. This is what we're going to go and execute or try best to execute on. And I think we all know no plan or schedule we've ever put together has worked at all from beginning to end. If you've done that, you are an absolute
Oh, Ben,
superstar.
oh no, Ben, my plans always go, it's always perfect. Only
Okay, well,
joking.
can you forward them on to me? I would love to see them. But
I'll share
what
them with you.
all right, but I think where there's opportunity to go and exercise, and it's not necessarily looking at it from, let's say, a crashing perspective of adding more resources or trying to get people to work longer or get more things done in that respect, but sometimes asking the question of why do we need to go and have it occur in this order or this fashion, right? And sometimes, even sometimes it doesn't come out necessarily inside of the work breakdown structure, but then someone says, actually, we can go and develop this without the environment completely being ready, because there was maybe some initial thought that those two were inextricably were tied together, but maybe they're not. And so continually asking these questions as you kind of look at the forward-looking view and looking for opportunities is where your team and your project can one is be able to focus on certain things as well as gain efficiency.
This just means it's time for Project Lifestyle. Oh my goodness. I cannot believe that we have just gone so far, so fast. It's just been so much fun. But we've been talking about how can we improve throughput? How can we be more efficient? How can we do things even better in our personal life? I want us to focus today on the power of focus. For everyone actually listening today, you wonder, well, how exactly can I do that? In order to be fully efficient and get things done even better, how can we even be focused on one particular thing that can actually be amplified to get us to success? I'm going to be sharing some tips with you just very quickly. The power of focus. In order to do that, I need to set clear goals. So even just like every other project, you have your objectives and what you need to achieve, and you know what's in scope. In your personal life, it's the beginning of the year. I want you to think about how are you going to clearly define your goals and make sure that they align with the values of the family. You think about what you really want to achieve in 2023. How are you clearly identifying that? And how are you ensuring that it's in line with those things that will pull the needle for you and your family together? So think about that, clear goals. And work with your partner and your team, whoever it is that comes in your family, to prioritize these ideas. So does it mean that you want to, buy a new property this year? Or is it a case that you even want to be promoted at work, but you're going to take some more time away from home because you need to put in more work in the office? How are you communicating that? Have you made it clear to the family to say that this is what the goal is this year? We want to make $50,000 more. And so the goal means I'm going to take on an extra project at work. It means I'm going to have to stretch my time a little bit, but I'm going to be, doing some extra things with the family. So whatever that goal is, it doesn't really matter. It has to be clear. It has to be communicated. But before you even get that far, is when I want you to think about how you're going to prioritize. Bring the family together and say, for us to make extra 50,000 this year or buy that property or do whatever it is, it means that two other activities that we have been doing may have to be put on the sideline. It may mean that we had 3 vacation plans. We're only going to do just 2. We have to prioritize because we have to move money differently so that we can achieve those actual strategic goals for the family. And that needs to create a schedule. Get everyone together, get excited and say, when are we going to do what? And then eliminate all distractions. What are the things that have been pulling you away from focusing on those ideas? So think about that one. I said, set clear goals. I need to prioritize what the goals are. I need to create a schedule then and eliminate distraction. The power of focus. What you focus on amplifies. What you focus on gets bigger and better. Do that and follow this key 4 steps. And I can tell you without a doubt, you are going to be on your way to creating a better life that you've always wanted. Ben, is there like anything else you want to add? How can we just amplify our focus before we wrap up today?
I think in terms of amplifying focus is really understanding the why behind whether it's your goals or all of your other objectives that you have for yourself or for your project, is really tying that down, because that will drive you further than just, we'll say, the momentary inspiration that you might get from an Instagram reel or whatever, right? If you have that intrinsic tie as to why this is important to you, that will continue to go and drive you further.
Oh my goodness, that's right. Remember the why. Remember the reason behind why you do all you do. If it's for money, that's okay. If it's for fame, that's okay as well. Whatever the why is, just understand that, communicate that, and come together as a team to actually make it happen. We have done it again. Listen, we have come to the end of the show today, but I just want to thank each and every one of you who have joined us live from Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever you are. Don't forget to subscribe so you definitely will never miss out on any of this great content. It's been a great pleasure. I want to specifically say a big thank you to Ben. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here this morning. Thank you for sharing your wealth of knowledge. There's so much we definitely need to unpack, but I'm like, it's meant to be half an hour. It's almost an hour. I want to say thank you so much for everyone who has actually listened. As I say, you are it. The focus is on you. You are the greatest project you can actually ever work on. Yes, focus on one key thing that you want to implement this week because we're going to be back next week and let's talk about it, how you've been able to move that needle forward for you. Thank you, Ben. And as you know, when you get a great idea, you don't actually keep it to yourself. So if you found any value in today's episode, do not keep it to yourself. Tell a friend, share it with a colleague. Let us know in the comments one key takeaway you are going to be applying in your business, your career, and in your personal life. Ben, where can people actually find you? I want people to know a little bit about you and what you do.
For sure. You can find me on Instagram. You can look up Benjamin Chan. I think it's Benjamin Chan YYC because I'm in Calgary. You can also find me on my website at www.climbconsulting.ca or on Instagram, where I love posting all of my tips on project leadership and different ways to be able to go and accelerate and improve how you deliver. You can find me on Instagram at climb.project.leadership.
Goodness. You heard that. He shares regular tips and strategies. And the beauty about Instagram is also the fun side. You get to the fun side of us as well. Not just like Ben with just his jacket and stuff. He's also really fun, I must tell you. But remember, you are it. You are the best product you can actually ever work on. Share with a friend, share with a colleague. I just cannot wait to see you on the next one. If you've got any questions, you want to learn more about strategic project leadership, about training, mentorship, or professional development, and my keynotes, let's continue the conversation on strategicprojectleader.com. I am your host, and I'll be here again same time next week for another thought-provoking episode on the Strategic Project Leader. We have an awesome guest. We have Ricardo Vegas. He's going to be live on the show. You definitely do not want to miss this. I want to say once again, thank you very much for being here and see you on the next one. Bye-bye.